Welcome to Connected Conversations. I am Elena Petrova, founder and CEO of Ad Astra Inc. Tune in as we share inspiring stories, connect with local heroes, and discover solutions that uplift us. Welcome to Connected Conversations. We are back here in DuPont Circle, and we have someone who is local to us from Baltimore. I have Omari Jeremiah.
Yes.
Do you pronounce
Omari Jeremiah. Yes.
Omari Jeremiah? He's originally from New York. Now he lives here in Washington, D.C., and he's doing amazing job for our local communities. Not just local, but also global, once you take a look at his website. So imagine the world where within one conversation, your entire life can change. Whether you are looking for medical care or legal representation or education for your children. And it will all depend on the language that you speak. And then who's going to decide what language that is going to be? Because we talk about the concept that language is a human right. And this is the centerpiece of today's conversation. Because Omari created a nonprofit where he stands for just this. So Omari, language is a human right.
Yes.
What does it mean to you?
It means that everyone is able to get the resources that they need, regardless of the language that they speak. That language isn't a barrier for someone to be able to be successful and to become the best version of themselves. And so what I aim to create is a space in which that is something that is not an idea, but actually something that is in practice, something that everyone knows, everyone does, and we live in that way.
Precisely. And here in US, that was a premise for this country.
Right.
Because originally, and still is, even after latest executive order, there is a law of the land. And that law says that we do not have, well, even right now, we are saying that, well, there is a state language, and that is English, but we also have laws that protect people to receive communication in the languages that they speak. Outside of English, you come from New York. In New York, we have, 380 different languages?
At least.
Tell us about this.
Language access laws are something that exists on a city level, state level, as well as a federal level. As we know, that's something that's in flux right now. But they are definitely things that on a local level, local officials have done to ensure that they are citizens, that community members are able to get access to services regardless of the language that they speak. And so there's local language access laws that are still in place and are still followed, are still being implemented across the country.
And in your opinion, and you probably saw several success stories, how it is implemented and what the results of the successful implementation of those programs.
Yes, so I'm super excited because I believe it was last year, students and we actually helped to pass a language access law in Baltimore City. So we had a few of our graduates from our program that testified in City Hall about the importance of language access. We also collaborated with other local nonprofit organizations about the importance of language access, and that is now a law in Baltimore City.
Tell us about this law, because maybe not all of us who are outside of Baltimore and DC area, they might not know about this.
So essentially, the law says that if any organization that receives funding from Baltimore City is required to provide language access. That language access can look in the form of providing interpreters. It could be providing translators to ensure that the services that they provide are in a language that community members can understand. They have to do a survey in terms of the languages most spoken in the communities that they serve to gauge what language access would look like and how they can provide that to community members. So before then, it was something that was more of a luxury. It wasn't mandatory, but now it is mandatory. And what that looks like is that there's more access to educational services, there's more access to social services, to medical services, because this is now a law that was passed in Baltimore City.
Congratulations.
Thank you. Thank you.
How did it feel when you and your students and your organization, after working on, how long did you guys work on this?
So we were actually invited to testify a couple days before the bill was actually presented in City Hall. And so what we do is we train high school students to become professional interpreters. And we were actually talking about language access in our program at that time.
Mm-hmm.
And so it was just a perfect transition to have some of our students actually write about the importance of language access, talking about situations in which their parents weren't able to get services that they needed, or talking about situations in which their brothers or sisters weren't able to get services that they needed. They had to bring either the student themselves, or they had to bring a friend, a family member who spoke English, to get that service that they actually needed, but wasn't able to actually communicate in the same way as a professional interpreter can, wasn't a professional translator. So services weren't provided to the same quality or same extent as what would be provided with a professional interpreter or professional translator. So telling those personal stories about the impact and the importance of language access, I think made a huge difference in terms of why this is important, why this should be a law. And I think it was really meaningful for students too to know that they helped to pass a law in Baltimore City, that the community that they live in, they can engage in their community to change laws in their own community. It was the first time they've ever done something like that. So it took a while for them to process that, oh, I helped to pass a law in Baltimore City. We were working on resumes a couple of weeks later, and I said, this is something you can put on your resume. You helped to pass a law in Baltimore City. And it was just something that they were surprised that they had that in them to be able to do something like that and change the community in that way.
This is brilliant. This is absolutely brilliant. Could you share maybe a couple of those stories for our listeners? I'm sure it's motivational for all of us. We can learn from each other.
Oh, there's a bunch of stories. If I had to choose one, I'm thinking for that specific instance, one of our graduates, she just completed our interpreter program. She's a professionally trained interpreter. She then went on to, she's partnered with Ad Astra. So she works with Ad Astra doing over the phone interpreting. She loves doing over the phone interpreting, but she also wanted to get into teaching. She's a natural teacher. In addition to our interpreting program, we provide adult language classes for that same reason in helping to ensure language access for all community members. There are parents and community members that want to learn English. There's also school staff members that want to learn Spanish and learn French and learn languages so they can communicate with the parents and community members and patients that they serve. So we offer those programs, but we prioritize graduates from our interpreter training program to be those teachers. She was one of our first teachers to be able to do that. She's now, she taught Spanish to school staff members, many of her former teachers, and she also taught English to parents in the community, as well as community members in the wider community in South Baltimore. And I think the biggest impact with that wasn't even just the fact that she was able to successfully teach language, see herself as a language teacher, know the importance of her language skills and the language that she brings. But what I saw that was surprising that I didn't expect is that parents were able to say, okay, this is something I can do now. I can grow in my language skills. I can advocate for what I want to see in my community because there's somebody like me that is doing that now. And so I think that that sense of empowerment is something that she's 19 years old at this time, and I think her future is super bright because of that opportunity.
Yeah, oh my God. I am going to be. That is amazing. And you're saying that she's currently OPI,
Currently
over the
OPI.
phone interpreter.
Yes.
Well, thank you again. We are incredibly grateful for this partnership that we have with your organization. Tell us and our listeners who you are, your mission, what is that Northern Star
Sure.
of your of what you do.
So my name is Omari Jeremiah. I'm the founding director of Next Generation Language Access, and our mission is to train first and second generation immigrant high school students to become professional interpreters, to reduce language barriers throughout the United States, as well as provide viable career options and career workforce development opportunities to first and second generation immigrant high school students. And we do this for two reasons. One is because research has shown that someone that is a first or second generation immigrant is actually 30% more likely to fall into poverty than someone who is not a first or second generation immigrant in the United States. And the second reason is that there's a huge need for interpreters, but there's a huge need for professionally trained interpreters. And as language continues to be a barrier. As we continue to face language barriers, we need more professionally trained interpreters in the fields to help to reduce those language barriers, to ensure that every community member is able to get the services that they need. Going back to what we were talking about in terms of the importance of language access. And so our training is 100 hours of professional interpreter training. Students leave with a completed resume, cover letter. They are trained in simultaneous interpreting, consecutive interpreting, sight translation. We connect them with 4 different employers, and we have collaborations with different organizations. Ad Astra has been a huge partner and a really beneficial partner for us. And a lot of our graduates who have completed our program now work for Ad Astra, and it has completely changed their lives because they didn't know what they were going to do before they were going to graduate from high school. They knew that they were looking for work. They needed to support their families. They needed to support themselves. But how to actually do that was not quite clear. And the idea that they can use their own language skills and use that as a way to move forward in life was something they were never presented before. And using that with organizations that need interpreters, that in which interpretation is in demand, was a perfect partnership, so that we're providing more professionally trained interpreters in the fields, and our students are able to get really good opportunities in the workforce and see their language skills being important in terms of the lives they want to live.
You guys are doing fantastic job. If you have time, take a look at the website. You help with resumes,
Yes,
development. You help with marketing skills, not just language skills.
yeah,
Right. So when I started looking at everything that you do from point A to point B, it's like mentorship program for young people.
Yeah, it is.
Right. So what led you to make that decision to take that path in life?
So, I mean, going back in terms of language access, I was a bilingual ESOL, or used to be called ESOL, paraeducator in Baltimore City schools. And so I was tasked with essentially ensuring that parents that spoke languages other than English were able to get services that they needed in our school. Mm-hmm. And that's when the importance of language access really hit me. Because they were not able to get, we had services, there was resources, and there's definitely a need for more resources, whether it be food pantries, ESL classes, support with health insurance, dental insurance. But if someone is not able to actually understand how those resources are given, or be able to actually access the resource because the resource is in a language they don't understand, they can't actually access that resource. Mm-hmm. And so having more professionally trained interpreters was something that was important at the time. In addition to, I don't know if I mentioned this before, but in addition to Spanish, I also speak Swahili, Portuguese, I know American Sign Language. So I've been trained as a professional interpreter to provide services for parents and community members in various languages. But before I was actually trained, I was in this role as an ESOL paraeducator. And it hit me that I think there's something else that I'm missing. I spoke Spanish, so they said, okay, so help this family that speaks Spanish. But I thought, but is there something else that I'm missing here? I feel like there's more training that I needed. And so I went to get training to become a professional community interpreter. Mm-hmm. And that really opened my eyes in terms of the importance of community interpreting and best practices in community interpreting, some of which I was not doing before. And now I know better, I know what to do, and I know how to actually support parents, as well as community members. But I also know that's not something that's happening across the board, not happening in other communities, not happening in other organizations. And so it became really important to me to think of a way so that how can we improve language access so that everyone, not just people at my school, but everyone is able to have access to the services that are in Baltimore City, that are in the state of Maryland. And through training, I learned that to become a professional community interpreter, you have to have at least 40 hours of professional training, have your language proficiency independently evaluated, as well as have a high school diploma. And so it hit me, and I thought, well, what if we train high school students, to become professional interpreters? We provide the training, we do language proficiency testing, and then when they graduate and they have their high school diploma, they can move into a position as an interpreter, because we need more interpreters in the field, and we have a large pool of people that can potentially be really great community interpreters. And this was back in 2017, and nobody had done it before. It was only given to working professionals, people such as myself, other people that were in professional positions that wanted to get additional training to become professional interpreters. And so I thought, okay, how can I give a training that was generally given to working professionals and add on to it so that someone that is in high school, in their third or fourth year of high school, can successfully access that training, as well as give them the other resources they need to be successful after training ends. It's one thing to be able to train someone to be an interpreter, but what happens after they're trained, in my opinion, is just as important as the actual training. So that is what is now next generation language access. They get 100 hours of professional community interpreting training rather than the standard 40 hours. They complete a resume, cover letter. They do job interview practice. We also do self-care plans, professional development plans. Every student leaves with those things so that they can be successful when they actually complete our program. We partner with different employers as well that presents to students while they're in the program and start that onboarding process when they're in the program so they can successfully transition to those positions when they graduate. And that has been really successful in terms of students seeing hope in terms of what they can do with the skills that they have, but also ensuring that we have more professionally trained interpreters in the fields so that when I'm in, future paraeducators or future language access employers or employees, we know that we have a bigger pool of people that can help us support language access and that are professionally trained to support language access. And that's really the mission of Next Generation Language Access.
Congratulations, guys.
Thank you.
And of course, you look at different domains and different industries. Where do you think the need right now? The need is probably, you can see it, medical, of course,
right.
Social services, legal, criminal. Where do you think we need interpreters the most right now? And the reason why I'm asking, there are a lot of conversations with integrating technology, where technology is good, where combination. Where do you see the need for people right now?
I do see it across the board. It's hard to say in just one specific field. I'm going to start with the medical field, but I don't think it's just in the medical fields. But I think someone that can make those critical decision-making skills, like really thinking about applying ethics and standards of practice that interpreters are trained to do, thinking about how to best make a decision based on the situation that they are in, that's huge in the medical fields. That can be the difference between someone getting life-saving service or not getting life-saving service. And so I think that is something that is super important. And I don't want to just say it's in the medical field, because I really think this is also something that can impact someone's education. It can impact someone's ability to get food stamps, to get services that they need to be successful. But if I'm just specifying one, the medical field is one that first comes to mind, just in terms of what's at stake when we don't have a professionally trained interpreter in those settings.
I'm glad that you mentioned this. I talk to quite a bit medical professionals, and whether it's online meetings or when I travel and meet them in person, and there are a few conversations with doctors who are saying to me, Lena, sometimes I'm waiting for the interpreter to arrive, and sometimes interpreters summarize or inject their own opinion. I'm so tired of it. Now I can just have AI, and AI is going to give me this in a second. So I don't even know why we are going to be needing your services or your profession very soon. It's going to become so irrelevant. And I listen to this. I like the feedback, because then, of course, I take feedback, come back and, talk to my talent. Right. And of course, we want to make sure that it's all integrated into the training, and we want to improve. Right. Now, I'm listening to you, and you guys are training people with 100 hours of training.
Yes.
And you and I both know, I used to be an interpreter, not anymore. You are linguist yourself before you started this nonprofit. We know that interpretation, it's not word-to-word concept.
Right.
Interpretation is more than that.
Right.
So how would you respond to those stories?
In terms of not needing interpreters? Or
no,
replacing...
in terms of that, it's not information word for word. When interpreter arrives, whether it is on site, physical site, or virtual site, it's more than that.
Right.
Right? So how do you see this? How do you see our profession?
I see it in a place in which professionalizing and growing the profession is becoming more important. I think it was always important, but I think there's more push to do it now to show that a professionally trained interpreter is not the same as AI. Right. There's decisions that a human professionally trained interpreter can only do, that AI cannot replace. And I think it's going to encourage the profession in general to really increase our level of knowledge, to be really on top in terms of our working languages, to be able to be successful in those in fields and competing with AI. And this is something that I tell students as well, because they've mentioned this to me as well. They're like, well, we can just use AI. But I think after the training, they're like, okay, this is something that's only we can actually do. Right? There's in terms of making ethical decisions, in terms of interpreting for meaning and really deciding what is the best way to convey the message that I'm hearing. There is a decision-making process in that I don't see being replicated with AI. I think in terms of getting a quick, fast answer, yes, AI does that. Mm-hmm. If we're looking for accuracy and we're looking for a substantial response that is going to be best served for that actual population, for that service user, service provider, we need someone trained to do that.
So, building on what you're saying, what value do we bring when we provide our service? In addition, of course, yes, we are translating, we are interpreting, we are bringing this text from one language to another. What is additional value that we bring?
We're connecting people across culture and language.
Yes.
Like, we're allowing people to talk to each other and connect in a way that they otherwise would not be able to. So a professionally trained interpreter, when they're doing their job really well, they may not even know the interpreter's there, right? They're just talking to each other across culture and language. And I don't see that connection, that human connection that is central to the interpretation profession happening through AI. I think you need someone that can facilitate that conversation very well to be able to make that connection happen. And I think that's what a professionally trained interpreter brings to every encounter that they do.
Correct. When there was 100 hours of training, what is packaged there?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so we do use a Community Interpreter International curriculum. So we do 60 hours of Community Interpreter International training. And then we also have curriculum specifically for high school students. As I mentioned before, there was more, I was realizing there's more that we need to provide for high school students to be successful in the interpretation profession. And the beautiful thing, what I love about working with high school students is that they don't really have to go anywhere. They're going to be in school anyway, right? So you can do more training with them before they actually leave than someone that's a working professional and they only have a set amount of hours before they go back to work. So we do after school training. We do in-depth simultaneous interpretation training. So they have a strong base in simultaneous interpreting. We do more practice in note-taking. So they have at least 30 symbols that they can use, as well as knowing different note-taking skills that interpreters use. We do different ways of interpreting. They practice OPI, they practice VRI. We also practice RSI. We practice relay interpreting, so that they're really exposed to the field and they can see where they can get an idea about where they want to see themselves in the fields. And we can do a lot of feedback about that in terms of what worked, what didn't. They give themselves feedback all the time to help them improve their language abilities. We do more terminology practice so they can actually improve their terminology, medical terminology, education terminology, social service terminology. That's what's in that 100 hours. In addition to that, they also have to use their skills in community settings. So they have 20 hours in which they actually have to interpret in various community settings and in organizations or situations in which interpreters are generally needed, but there's not an interpreter currently there. Again, going back into when I first started working in that ESOL paraeducator fields and knowing that there's a huge need for interpreters, but I'm just one person. I can't be in every situation where an interpreter is needed. This service allows all of our students to go in those areas, whether it be parent-teacher conference, maybe it's back-to-school nights, maybe it's a summer event so that people know about different services being offered in the city, and they're interpreting in those various events, various situations, so that we have more interpreters providing those, and they're supervised. They supervise interpretation. They're still in training and they're getting their practice hours, but we include that in their actual training, and that's what they need to do to actually get their certificate from us.
Yeah. And again, to clarify for our listeners, when people graduate from programs like your Amari's, program, again, linguists, and I'm going to say your students are linguists, right? So they are trained for different situations, whether it's medical, whether it's social services. Social services could be, it could be domestic violence,
Right.
it could be child abuse, medical, it could be end of life situation. Education is could be different way how linguist is going to be approaching different way of conducting communication between student and the professor, taking tests, and all those different scenarios. I like clarifying those scenarios because, again, this is not AI. This is a human, as you said, facilitating communication.
Right.
This is the value that you bring, as you mentioned, and I want to make sure that we spread this awareness and knowledge, as I keep hearing that this profession is going to be one of the first to be eliminated as we keep moving to 2030, 2029 with all the predictions of AI. I think that the more AI is going to give us time for productivity, the more people will understand how much human connection is important.
Yes.
So I want to hear more of your stories. Maybe another success stories of your student who made a change with the community.
Yeah, and I just want to say I completely agree with you as well. I think, and as I mentioned before, I think the central, if I'm thinking about when I was working as an interpreter, what was most impactful for me is being able to connect people across culture and community, across culture and language. And that is something that I think there's a place for AI in preparing to do that. I think there's a place for AI in preparing terminology and preparing to be successful as an interpreter. I don't see that being a substitute for interpreters, though. Not a substitute that's going to actually help us to build community or help us to like really bridge language and culture in that way. And so I see AI as something, it's here to stay, right? It's not going to go anywhere. It's something that can be a useful tool, but I think we have to really think critically in terms of when is it useful and when are we pushing past what it's actually meant to do. I don't think it's meant to substitute human connection. I think we need humans for human connection. So we need to connect humans with other humans for that connection to happen and to really build that community. And so I think that's really the beauty of the interpretation profession, because that's what interpreters do.
Precisely. And the more, and when we talk about this, I want to emphasize that organizations like yours or mine and many others, we are not against technology.
Right.
Many of us, including my organization, we develop our own technology. We develop our technology to empower linguists,
Right.
to do more, to do faster, maybe more accurate, to be more accurate. At the same time, the more technology we integrate into our life, again, the more time we have, and the more we realize how much we need connection.
Right.
And the connection can be facilitated by humans. So I will continue emphasizing it over and over again, because this whole podcast is called Connected Conversations. So we can learn from each other. So let's share at least one or two more stories, because stories that would keep humanity alive, in my opinion. That's where language comes from, right?
Yeah.
The language is that brought us where we are today. We learn from each other through language. We survive through language.
I think the story that I would definitely like to share, this story is not a recent story, but it's definitely one of the stories that have inspired me to start this organization. So when I was going back to 2017, again, that pilot program where no one had trained high school students to be interpreters before, I decided to reach out to students, see who was interested. They had to apply for the program. So they had to write a variety of sentences about why they want to be in the program, 4 to 6 sentences, and they had about 4 questions where they had to write that amount. I got one application where the student wrote 2 pages, 2 full pages, about why she wanted to be an interpreter. And she wrote that her parents were going to be deported back to El Salvador because their temporary protected status was not going to be renewed. And they didn't know she had a younger sister, she had a younger brother, and she was going to be the person in charge of her siblings. She was 18 years old. She was about to graduate. She didn't know what she was going to do or what it really meant to be the person in charge when her parents were gone. She didn't know anything in terms of like how to actually move forward until she saw our presentation. That's what she wrote. Mm-hmm. And she didn't know that she could be an interpreter. She had done that for her parents. She had done that for her friends, but she didn't know there was a profession out there in which she can use her language skills to actually work as an interpreter. And she said she was inspired to become an interpreter after seeing that presentation. She was one of those students that completed the program. She is now working full-time as an interpreter, and she's preparing to become a court-certified interpreter after completing our program. Oh. So just being able to have that experience of seeing a student's life gradually change from I don't know what life looks like to now I have a path moving forward is a very common story in the work that I do. And that is one student that her life was changed being able to work as an interpreter and overcome the obstacles that she faced at a very early age.
Wow. Thank you. And you guys already helped with the process with the city of Baltimore to change the legislation.
Yes.
And now, and again, this podcast is about one community learning from another community so we can move forward with the bigger changes across the world. Now, if you think about government assistance with the protecting language access as a human right, doesn't matter which country, right? Because this is something that is happening on the global level. Mm-hmm. What do you think, what policies, in general, right, in general words, what policies would be important for communities to have in terms of government support in the instances like city of Baltimore, maybe in other places? What did you learn that you can share?
Policies in terms of passing language access laws?
Yeah, or passing, or maybe establishing where they do not have it, or what is important for communities, multilingual communities, because in a sense, any community is multilingual because language is a part of our identity.
Right. I think it's important for organizations, government organizations, as well as other local organizations to get an idea of the scope of the need of who they serve. Mm-hmm. Who do they serve? What are the languages spoken amongst the population that they serve? Because that's going to help them to understand how to best provide language access to that population. So a lot of schools, for example, will have bilingual Spanish secretaries because they know that there's a lot of parents that speak Spanish, and so it makes sense to have a bilingual staff member to help to meet that need for parents or for community members. Other schools have French secretaries, have interpreters for languages that are not as common, so that they are still interpreters on site, but there may not be a bilingual staff member for that specific language. But I think getting an idea first in terms of what is the need and what are the language access needs is going to help to determine what is a good plan for actually providing adequate and equitable language access supports for populations that we serve. So I think that's the first step. And then the second step after that is how do we develop a plan based on the information and the data that we actually have? Do we want to look into providing hiring bilingual staff members, which a lot of our graduates do, just putting that out there, that I'm looking into in bilingual positions? Do we want to provide or have a pool of interpreters? Do we need a pool of translators? Do we need to think about the messaging that we're sending out? And is the messaging we're sending out something that everyone's able to access? I think those questions are really important when we're looking in terms of engagements and service delivery to various communities that we aim to serve. Does that answer your question?
Yep. Basically, what you're saying, first, let's study the community needs.
Right.
Let's make sure that we are fully on the same page with what the demographics of the community,
Yes.
what their needs are, and then start planning strategy of resources.
Yeah. And that's what I did when I was actually in the paraeducator position, is to we had data in terms of parents and community members and languages that parents spoke. So that helped me to get an idea about, okay, this is how many interpreters we want to have in our interpreter pool. This is advocating for a bilingual position for in this specific community, because a lot of parents go here for services. So having that data helped me to advocate to the principal as well as people in the district about how we can actually serve the parents and community members in my school. I'm using school as an example because I worked in schools, but this is not unique to schools. This is something that is across the board in various organizations that serve community members.
Yeah, it could be anyway. I agree with you. What are you going to say to people who say, you came to this country, assimilate, speak English? It could be English here in US, but of course I look at some of the European countries who could say French, Dutch, Finnish, wherever that you arrive, Swedish, wherever that you arrive. So you came here, well, why don't you just start speaking the language of the country where you came?
A couple things related to that. One is the United States is a country in which our values are based on being the best human we can be and pursuing happiness in the way that we are able to do so. It's not about being a certain type of person. So it's really about the dignity of someone, the inherent dignity of someone, not in terms of the identity someone is expected to have. So that's what this country's founded on. That's what the goal of this country was. And so we never had an official language since the start of this country for that reason, because the idea was that language doesn't determine somebody's worth. It doesn't determine someone's overall trajectory. So it's not so much about learning English, because English was never the only language spoken in the United States.
Yeah.
Once the country was founded, there were many languages spoken at the same time, and it's always been that. The United States has always been a multicultural, multilingual country. That is one of the things that is very unique about the United States. And that being said, I also think the other part of that too is that language access isn't about, okay, we'll just make sure this person is able to hear all content in the language they understand. It's ensuring that someone's able to get access to services, and that language isn't a barrier to getting access to services. There's many parents that want to learn English, but when they are in the hospital and they're in the medical facility and it's a life or death situation, learning English is not the time to do that. Right? That's not the time. When there's situations where they need services to be successful and to be economically, socially healthy, language is not the time to learn language there. It's the time to provide those services. A service isn't language dependent. And so I think that is something we also just have to think about in terms of separating wanting to learn a language from services being provided for someone to move forward in life.
Absolutely. US, we have 360, 380 different languages that are spoken here.
Mm-hmm.
Canada, 150, because people usually say it's French and English. No, it's 150 languages that are spoken in Canada.
Yeah.
English is information, right? So when we say that for community to prosper, everybody should have the same access to information, and that's my personal belief. And you're absolutely right. It doesn't mean that people should not be learning English. people should be learning more than English. Any
Yeah.
language that they want, the more the merrier.
Yeah.
Let's learn languages 5, 6, 7.
Yeah.
But when somebody needs to have medical care, or somebody is going to court to face a judge and provide evidence, they should not be precluded from
From that service.
the service, from information, from education.
Right.
Because in the end of the day, that strong society that we all want to live in, we are the ones who are building it.
Yeah.
So that's a good concept. So thank you again, because you are the one who is helping us to build this society through the generation that is going to be taking care of us in the future.
Well, thank you for your collaborations, for helping us to build this. We couldn't have done it without you, for our partners. This is something that is done with people. It's something that we do as a community, and I believe we are the most successful version and the best version of ourselves when we work together and when we partner together. And so helping our students to see that there's organizations that they can work for and what they can do with the skills they have is huge.
And that's again talking about connecting communities and connecting people through the skills such as language. I want to bring to our conversation again technology and the concept that a lot of people believe that is going to happen soon, with a couple of years from now, 2029. Like, there are a lot of different predictions from Elon Musk to several others. It's basic universal income, right? A lot of people are saying, oh my God, it's going to happen. We are going to get this money. I can do whatever I want. And the work is going to be irrelevant to us. And then, of course, I look at organizations like yours, mine, and many others, that I am disturbed by that. I'm disturbed by that because, particularly here in US, I think that work here in US is connected to our identity. So if you're going to take it away from us without a plan, a lot of people will lose meaning. Because work is not just money. For many of us, it's meaning in life. Now, work that you do, and now you're preparing next generation to enter the market. Some of them are already entering the market. So it's meaning, profession, language is identity. Language is also culture, or a drop in the culture. So how we are going to be handling all of this with the next couple of years? Because we need a plan.
Yeah,
if you're going to take away identity as a profession, identity as because AI is also taking language in many way, or adapting it in some way or another. And we are not discussing the plan. Well, all we are discussing is somehow we are going to implement basic universal income, drop the money, and some of the professions will disappear. And they say language profession is one of them.
I think that's, well, one thing that comes to mind in terms of cost of living, and is that really going to impact cost of living? Does that cost of living in DC, for example, is different than cost of living in Oklahoma. So I think that's something to consider in terms of universal basic income. But I think the other thing, and it's similar to what we were talking about before, is prioritizing human connection. And I think these ideas, these practices, predictions don't prioritize human connection. But that's probably the reason why we're here. Like, I think the reason we are here is for connection, social connection. It could be spiritual connection, emotional connection. And so when we don't prioritize opportunities for people to find meaning amongst people, or prioritize opportunities for people to connect with people that are different from themselves, from different cultures, different backgrounds, different countries, then we live in very small boxes. We live in a place that's more powered by fear than by what the world looks like, or what we can be. We don't become the best version of ourselves when we don't actually connect with others. People have information that we don't have. People have skills that we don't have. And so my concern with these predictions is that human connection goes down. That leads to a variety of social problems, mental health problems, depression, anxiety, various things like that, because we're human beings, and human beings have to connect with each other. Human beings have to find meaning in what they do. And meaning is not just in terms of profession. It's definitely part of it, but it's the people we connect with in that profession. It's the people we connect with when we actually go to work, when we are actually working with them, that I think that we find that meaning. And so I think we really have to be cognizant of our own health, our physical health, our mental health, our emotional health, when we're taking away supports and taking away opportunities to connect that promotes those types of health and well-being. I don't see that being something that's going to be helpful in general, because I see more obstacles in terms of people being able to connect and connect authentically in that way.
Yeah, thank you for this. I also sometimes think that with all the AI development, particularly in our industry, in our profession, if I see the same cost to providing the service, whether it's provided by people or technology, why not use people? Because you are giving the meaning, you are giving them work, you are giving them hope for tomorrow, and then it can be supplemented by technology, of course.
Right.
Because that, again, something that you are doing. You are growing the next generation through that meaning of connection.
Right. We have to prioritize people. We have to find people to be important. We have to see someone as a person rather than as a way of reducing costs. And I think that's the change in perspective that I think we need to be able to move in that direction. And there's a lot of consequences when we don't move in that direction. I can see why someone's thinking, okay, reduce costs, we can use AI for interpreting, but the consequences of doing that, I don't think we're considering all those consequences of doing that as well. Now, for us, it's something that's also concerning, just in terms of this is an opportunity for our graduates to have well-paying employments. It's an opportunity for them to move forward in life in a way that AI doesn't provide that same type of opportunity, right? Like it's something that really can change the lives, as I mentioned, the two stories I told, of someone that's a first and second generation immigrant high school student here in the United States, across the United States. So kind of going back to that piece in terms of connection, if we really think about what is important to me, and I would challenge us to think, like, if we think about what's really important to me, it's hard to think about that without thinking of a person. I'm pretty sure we're going to connect this to somebody, whether it be a family member, whether it be a friend, at some point. And so I think we also have to take that same mindset to how we want our future to look like and how we are building towards that future. Because are we building towards that future in connecting with people and making opportunities for people to connect? Or is it building it in a way to get something that is fast and efficient without people being involved, and the consequences and benefits and drawbacks of those two?
How do you see community, like the concept of community of tomorrow? And when I say tomorrow, let's say within the next 5 years.
Community in the next 5 years? See, that's a tough question, because I feel like we're at a crossroads right now where I can see two potential possibilities. I can see people coming together because what we have done up to this point has not been that successful. Like, I can see people coming together to say that, okay, during the pandemic, we were mostly virtual, but I miss actually being in person with people. I want to be in person. I want to connect in person. There's a place for virtual meetings. There's a place for connecting virtually, but it doesn't replace that human connection that happens in person. I could also see us going in the opposite direction, where we continue to prioritize tools that help us to be more efficient over connections that help us to live well. Again, holistically, talking about emotional wellness, physical wellness, mental health wellness, things like that. So I think there's definitely a crossroads that we're at right now where both of those realities are possible. I think we really have to reflect in terms of what we want our futures to look like and what practices are we putting into place for that. That's one reason, for example, that I was really adamant about helping to pass this language access law in Baltimore City, because when I think about what I want my community to look like, I want my community to be a community in which everyone is able to receive the services that they need, and people are able to connect to about those services and be able to connect across language and culture. And so taking those steps to have that be a reality was something that was important to me. I think we also just in general would benefit from reflecting on what we want our future to look like and what steps we're taking towards that future.
Thank you. I see that. I see
Yeah.
that. Well, thank you so much, Omari. Now, if there are people who would like to participate in your organization or keep developing concepts similar to yours, what would be your advice to
Yeah,
them?
sure. We would love to partner with you all. If there's a way we can partner, it can be for training, having some of our students work in your organizations. It can be mentors for our students so they can see different ways in which they can work after they graduate. Best place to start with our website. That's www.nextgenerationlanguages.org. And there's a contact us page on there. So you can contact us in terms of wanting to get involved. It could be volunteering. It could be, again, working with students. And that would be the best way to connect with us so we can talk about how we can partner.
Well, thank you very much for this conversation. I'm sure it's very motivating to many of us. It's the beginning of 2026.
Yes.
The best way to start the year is to see how you can pay forward. And that is a great story.
Appreciate it.
Guys, help us to grow our community. I'm not doing it myself. I have the whole team of people across the country here in US and in 20 different countries across the globe. They are all helping me to make this conversation happen and to help understand what is the best way for all of us to move forward as a global community that really consists of the pockets. If you want to make a change, look for somebody who is next to you. Next to me, it was Omari. I live in Washington, D.C. He lives in Baltimore. We started working together. We are sharing the story to you. Maybe you have stories that you would like to bring to us. Send us email, share a comment, like our podcast. It all matters to the algorithm so we can continue growing. Thank you very much for being a part of Ad Astra community. Thank you, Omari, for your stories.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you for tuning in into Connected Conversation. We are incredibly inspired by the potential of positive change within our communities. We invite you to be a part of our conversation, and we invite you to be a part of our journey. Please subscribe to our podcast to stay updated on our latest episodes. Your support is incredibly invaluable. It will help us to grow our community. We also encourage you to share your thoughts in the comments of each episode. Your feedback will help us to create even more meaningful conversations. We can inspire the change and connect with each other one conversation at a time.